You're not going to believe what I'm about to tell you. I'm going to tell you some things. You're not going to believe these things I tell you. And that's okay. You have good reason not to. But I need you to keep listening regardless of what you believe. I don't care if you're liberal, conservative, or somewhere in between. I don't care if you're a cat person, a dog person, or a tarantula person. So, morning person, night owl, iPhone or Android, Coke or Pepsi, I think it's so important that these were included in this part because people define themselves by these things. Whatever. I don't care. I don't. All I care about is that you read this to the end. Sounds good? Oh, they flew away. Then let's begin. You may have heard that George Washington had wooden teeth. He lost most of his teeth in his 20s and had a set of dentures made out of wood. It's a disturbing visual. The founding father, commander-in-chief, and first president of the United States, click-clacking his way through a ham sandwich. Ha ha ha. So funny. So funny. Would you like a bite? Would. Except it isn't true. In 2005, at the National Museum of Dentistry in Baltimore, laser scans were performed on Washington's 200-year-old dentures and found them to be made of gold lead, hippopotamus ivory, horse and donkey teeth. His mouth was a petting zoo of nightmares. Gosh, this is one of those comics that you're just supposed to laugh at how, I don't want to say terrible the art style is, because I'm sure someone spent such a long time on this, but it's so uncomfortable. It's so uncomfortable. Upon learning this information, I want to ask you something. How did it feel to learn this new fact about George Washington's teeth? I stated a thing. I provided evidence of that thing, and presumably you now believe in the thing I stated. Presumably your belief in the composition of George Washington's teeth has changed with little or no friction. Presumably, the next time you're at a party and George Washington's teeth come up in conversation, you're going to proudly impart this newfound knowledge to your fellow partygoers. Yes? Terrific. Let's continue. What if I told you George Washington had another set of false teeth? What is your favorite color? What if I told you this other set wasn't made from wood, ivory, or any of the aforementioned materials? What if I told you it was made from teeth of slaves? Now, let's try this again. How did it feel to learn this fact about George Washington? If George Washington's teeth were made of slave teeth, that would be so weird. For one, why do you want someone else's teeth in your mouth? Two, would racist people actually want that race's body parts on their body? Any more of that friction I mentioned earlier. Before we go any further, allow me to reiterate. I'm not here to convince you that George Washington was a bad person. I could go through all my cited sources and cherry-pick arguments that either defy or demonize George Washington. I could paint a portrait of a monster, or I could exonerate a patriot. But as I said before, I don't care. It's not the point. The point is to give you an emotional barometer of how you feel when presented with new ideas. Because you may have noticed that the first fact about George Washington's teeth was rather easy to accept. I would even wager that when I told you the first fact, you accepted it without question. But when I told you the second fact, you immediately checked my sources and are now furiously composing an informed yet incendiary retort which you will boldly deliver to me in the form of a sour, blustering Facebook comment. And that's okay. That's all part of it. Let's try a few more. Napoleon Bonaparte was not short. He was 5'7", which was taller than the average Frenchman of the time. Thomas Crapper did not invent the flush toilet, nor did the word crap come about because of his name. I like how it looks like he's sitting on a closed toilet seat. Houseflies live for about a month, not 24 hours. Humans don't explode in a vacuum, nor do we boil. We just pass out from lack of oxygen, and then we die. That was in a Marvel movie. This is why it's so important for literature and movies and music to know their facts, because if you watch a movie where someone explodes in a vacuum, I'm gonna believe it. Like if I watch that, I'm going to believe it hardcore. And I watched Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and spoiler, but what's his name? He dies in space, and all he does is suffocate. And that's what I believed about space, because I saw that movie. Again, as you read these facts, take stock of how you feel. I'm guessing you softened to the last few fairly easily. Let's try a few more, and then we're done. There is zero evidence that Jesus Christ was born on December 25th. That's cool. Well, to be fair, we don't know his real birthday. But I think what I learned in 6th grade, which was 14 years... No, I can't do math. What I learned was that they chose December because there were other holidays in summer and fall and spring that would get in the way of his birthday. So they put the holiday somewhere else so that there would be more time and more people who would pay attention to it over there. Yeah, they say in speech class not to gesture above your face, but you don't really have a lot of room in here, Yeah. But yeah, the Pledge of Allegiance was written by a socialist. Who wrote the Pledge of Allegiance? A Christian socialist and former Baptist minister named Francis. I'm not going to try to pronounce that. I knew that. I learned that. Oof. Well, what is Christian socialism? Christian socialism is on the basis of the Holy Bible and the teachings of Jesus. I mean, to be fair, a lot of people were Christians, so that's not surprising. All of our documents seem to have been based on God or Christianity in some way. I wrote a paper one time in a freshman course in high school, and I basically said that... I hear somebody downstairs. I don't want to talk too loud. I don't want to put my political opinions in the apartment. I wrote this paper on gay rights, and I had to write a counter-argument, or multiple counter-arguments, because the paper was going to be a debate later on. My opposers said that they cited the Bible. They said that gay rights could not be allowed because of the church, and I referenced that church and state have to be separated by the rule, or the law. My teacher didn't even know that church and state were supposed to be separated. Like, that's how deep we still are in Christianity in 2020 in our laws. 6 of the 7 justices who voted in favor of Roe v. Wade were Republican appointed. This fact goes over my head because I don't know anything about Roe v. Wade. I know nothing. Roe v. Wade is decided. History.com. That's credible. That's credible. When did Democrats believe in Republican? When did they flip? Okay. Then my theory is disproved. So how did the last three feel? Well, this one it went over my head. This one makes sense. And this one I already knew, but these are things that people argue about because they're somewhat political, and I can see how people would get frustrated, like this guy right here. That's me sometimes. I'm pretty open-minded to facts. I enjoy facts. I love facts, which is weird since I'm not a history person, don't ask. I do like statistics. I like learning new things. When I write my Dungeons and Dragons campaign, there's always a random trivia night that has nothing to do with the world or the characters or anything. It's just trivia night, and if you win, you get an extra map or an extra greatsword or something awesome. Depending on your beliefs, I'm guessing it may have put some of you about here. At the very least, you can concede that it felt different to hear those statements compared to the ones about Napoleon or houseflies. Yes? But why? Why do we easily soften to some ideas but not others? Why do we gnash our teeth when presented with evidence counter to our beliefs? Why do we not only ignore this evidence, but dig our heels in deeper and believe more strongly in the opposing argument? Why would providing more evidence make someone less likely to believe an idea? It seems backwards and batshit fucking bonkers to me. It turns out batshit fucking bonkers has a name in the world of neuroscience. It's called the backfire effect, and a well-documented psychological behavior. A few years ago, at the University of Southern California's Brain and Creativity Institute, a study was conducted where participants were placed into an MRI machine. Once inside, they were presented with counter-arguments to strongly held political beliefs. A few examples. Laws restricting gun ownership should be made more restrictive. Gay marriage should not be legalized. As participants were read these counter-arguments, various parts of their brains were scanned for activity. What the study revealed was that the same part of the brain that responds to a physical threat responds to an intellectual threat. 1. This area of the brain is known as the amygdala. 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 And it's the emotional core of your mind. Unfortunately, it makes us biologically wired to react to threatening information the same way we react to being attacked by a predator. I have a knife. And I get it, because if someone says something so ignorant and you want them to get it, because how can you talk to someone who just doesn't get it? How? I get so frustrated. I do want to defend myself or whatever it is that they don't understand. I was trying to explain to a friend that if you run for a long time and at a good speed, there's such thing as runner's high, but they didn't think it was real. And runner's high is scientifically proven, but in an argument you can't just say, this is scientifically proven, you have to believe me. So I didn't know what to say, but it was hard for me because I wanted this person to believe me, because at that point, it wasn't about the belief. Like, nothing is going to change if I got that friend to believe in runner's high on the account of runner's high. But it felt like an attack because at that point I thought that because we didn't agree, that they thought I was stupid. And that is what's personal about it. And what's personal is always, always, always a threat. From an evolutionary standpoint, it makes sense. If you were a caveman and another caveman threw a boulder at your head, you wouldn't react by logically debating the pros and cons of getting brained. Core beliefs are the beliefs which people cherish the most deeply. They usually develop from childhood and are compounded by life experiences. Core beliefs are inflexible, rigid, and incredibly sensitive to being challenged. I hate elves. Elves? You hate something. God created velociraptors. I hate elves. Okay. When I told you that George Washington's dentures were made from animal bones, it probably didn't ruffle many features. But when I suggested they were made from slave teeth, I'm guessing it caused strife with some of you. There are obvious cultural reasons for this. Slavery is a sensitive, hot-button issue. But there are biological reasons as well as the amygdala, didn't learn how to say that when I looked it up, of your brain is screaming, battle stations. Some of you may have held a worldview that George Washington was a patriot and a hero. By presenting negative information about him, it challenged that worldview. Your brain loves consistency. Our brains do love consistency. I love just having the same day planned out every single day. Do homework, go to class, go to the gym, write, read. If I miss any, I get upset. If I add anything, I get upset. It builds a worldview like we build a house. It has a foundation and a frame and windows and doors, and it knows exactly how everything fits together. If a new piece is introduced and it doesn't fit, the whole house falls apart. Your brain protects you by rejecting that piece. It then builds a fence and a moat and refuses to let in any visitors. Yeah, we learned this in educational psychology. Basically, if you have something that the student already knows, you can build off of that as long as your course material is consistent with what they believe. But if what you're trying to teach is not consistent with what they believe, you have to start from ground zero. You can't start right here with your course material. You have to just help with the basics first. This is why we have the backfire effect. It's a biological way of protecting a worldview. Just remember that your worldview isn't a perfect house that was built to last forever. It's a cheap condo, and over time most of it will turn to shit. So, what do we do about this? Some of you have probably been nodding along in agreement, waiting for me to deliver a series of clever, combative ways to offset the backfire effect. The disappointing truth is that I don't have much advice for you. I don't have a way to change the behavior of 7.5 billion people carrying their beliefs around like precious gems wrapped in hand grenades. So perhaps this comic is trying to tell us not to... At first, I thought it was trying to say that we hold beliefs too closely and that we should be more open-minded. And I think it's saying that. But I also think that it's important at this part to understand that you can't change other people. We've all been told that a million times. Don't try to change other people. It's not going to work. Just worry about yourself. What are you going to get out of it? Nothing. Don't change other people because their psychology doesn't want them to change, and maybe I don't know. It's impossible. And if you've ever gotten into a debate and actually gotten someone to change, you can try to keep doing it, but even if you have, I'm assuming that the other 98% of debates that you've had have not changed the other person's view. You're just wasting your time. Sure, there are ways of changing people's minds that are more effective than others, but ultimately they fall short. This is compounded by the internet, where anything can be cited as a source, and every disagreement degrades into a room full of orangutans throwing feces at one another. The best I can do is make you aware of it, so you can identify the backfire effect in your own brain, which isn't easy. The mind can separate the emotional... The mind can't separate the emotional cortex from the logical one. Yes, so I am not a law student, but I do know that in a debate, if someone is debating something emotional, you cannot come back with statistics. You have to argue back with other emotional things, and the other way around. If someone is giving you a chart, you cannot say, but I feel this. I gave a teacher a statistic one time about straight cis men and what 75% of them did in a certain household. And my teacher came back and said, my husband is a cis white man and he doesn't do this. So your statistic is wrong. And she docked off points. Not the same argument. It did not go down well. And one could argue that this emotional underbelly is what makes us human. But I would argue that it's also what makes us animals. That's lovely. That's not lovely. No. I hate your whole everything. Fuck you, Travis. I sometimes pretend the amygdala of my brain is in my pinky toe. When a core belief is challenged, I imagine it yelling insane things at me. I wonder if the guy who wrote this is actually named Matt. I let it yell. I let it have its moment. I let the emotional cortex fight its little fight. And then I listen, and then I change. Because this universe of ours is so achingly beautiful, and we're all in it together. We're all going in the same direction. I'm not here to take control of the wheel, or to tell you what to believe. I'm just here to tell you that it's okay to stop, to listen, to change. Written and drawn by the Oatmeal.